Number 22, which has a vertex at 1, -7? Now, again, if you want to plug all these in the calculator one by one, that's fine. You can find the vertex. But I remember the little rule, and the only part of vertex form that deals with the actual vertex is inside the parentheses. I have to flip this sign. And at the very back, I have to keep that sign. So I'm looking for a flipped 1, which would be a -1. This one checks out, this one checks out, this one checks out, that one's done. Next, I'm looking for a kept sign of -7. This one checks out, this one's factor form. Yeah, it's a -7, but this isn't vertex form. Yeah, this one's got, this one's got a +7 and is also in factor form. So this A checked out. If you had multiple answers that you thought were correct, put them in the calculator and find out which one really works. I think that option A is the correct answer. So I go in my calculator and I put it in exactly like it is. Zoom 6. I'm looking for a vertex of 1, -7. I think that's about right. That's a minimum. Let's calculate it just to be safe. I want to be to the left of it. I am. Now let's get all the way over to the right of it. There we go. Enter, enter. 1, -7. It indeed was option A. Number 23 is tricky. A parabola has an axis of symmetry at x = 4. That's a vertical line. And one point on the parabola is 1, 2. Determine another symmetric point. That means in the world of this parabola, at 1, 2, we've got a point. 1, 2. We've got our first point. Now at x = 4, we've got a vertical line. Not a very good one, but it's a vertical line. That's where our parabola is going to flip over. Okay? It has to flip over this line. Well, if this point has to flip over to the other side, it's going to stay with a y value of 2. So we already know another point in this graph is going to have a y value of 2. That only eliminates one option. We've got to figure out how far did it go. Well, to get from 1 over to our flip of 4, that's 1, 2, 3 hops. So we're at 4, and we need to take 1, 2, 3 more hops, and that's going to take us over to 7. So we went from 1 to 4 and 4 to 7. That's just our x values. We don't know anything else about this parabola. We don't know if it's got a max or a min. We don't know anything else. We just know that one of the points is 1, 2, and to get to the equal side of that on the other side of our axis of symmetry, we have to go over to 7, 2. You can check that. You could also put all these in to your axis of symmetry formula. x1 plus x2 over 2. Well, if I plug in what I think the right answer is, okay, I get 1 plus 7 over 2, which is going to be 4. X = 4, which is what my axis of symmetry was. Where that fails is if you don't understand the whole idea of the symmetric point. It has to be on the same plane. It has to be on the same y = line. Okay, they have to be symmetric. They have to flip to each other. Because technically A would pass this test I just did. But the y value would be incorrect for the point. Okay, so it helps for a lot of people that are good with graphs to just visualize that one. Which function represents a parabola translated 4 units left and 1 unit down from this original function? So we've got x squared. If we want to go 4 units left, that's inside the parentheses. And left is the opposite of what you'd think. You'd think it meant minus, but it's actually plus. Just remember that left or inside the parentheses is opposite of what you'd think. That accomplishes 4 units left. 1 unit down is on the back end, and it makes sense, a -1. So we're looking for a function that matches that, and it's option A. 25, this one was really tricky just because a lot of people didn't understand the wording on it. Okay, and we've done a problem like this, but when we did a problem like this previously, it had blank marks in there to have you tell me what went in there. This is a really common way that EOC likes to ask questions like this. It gives you a function. It's in standard form, and it says, show the next steps to complete the square. Well, if we want to complete the square, the first thing we've got to do is add 11 to both sides. giving us x squared minus 6x equals 11. But you'll notice that is occurring in all of these. All of these have that 11 over there. So what it really wants is the next step. The next step is where we take our b of negative 6, we divide it by 2, and we square it. Well, that's negative 3 squared, which is 9. So what we want to do is add 9 to both sides. And that is what it's asking for option D. X squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 11 plus 9. It's just the steps to completing the square. Given the function below, describe the transformation from x squared to negative x minus 5 quantity squared. Well, there's two things happening here. This negative sign popped up. Anytime we have a negative sign, it means it's going to take our parabola and it's going to flip it over the x-axis. We have never reflected over the y-axis. That's a tricky question. We always reflect over the x-axis. So that gets us down to just two options, because A is gone and D is gone. We have to account for the other transformation. Minus 5 inside the parentheses is the opposite of what you'd think. It means right 5. You would think it meant left 5. It means right 5. Therefore, we get option B. Again, you can put these two in the calculator and compare the parabolas. We've got x squared. We've got negative sign, x minus 5, quantity squared. And we're going to zoom 6 and see what happened. Well, there's our first graph. You have to keep in mind they graph them in order. First graph there, second graph there. Easier to see now. We reflected it over the x-axis, and we moved it right 5. That's pretty easy to see now. Okay, reflected over the x and moved it right 5. Check that one in the calculator tomorrow. Another one, another transformation. Here we have our x squared parent function, and this time two more things happen. This 1/3 popped up out front. Guys, that means it's going to be dilated by a factor of 1/3, but you'll notice they don't just let you get away with dilated. They want to know stretch versus shrink. If it stretches up in the air real high and gets taller, it requires a large whole number out front. If we're going to shrink it, we use a fraction or something less than 1. So that gets rid of option A and option B, because we don't want to stretch, we want to shrink. Okay? Next, we have to establish what this plus 3 out on the very back end did. Plus 3 on the very back end, that's up or down. Well, it means up 3 because up and down on the back end makes sense. Plus 3 goes up 3. So that leaves us with option D. Number 28, find the x-intercepts of the function. A lot of freaking ways to do this problem, guys. X-intercepts are just the zeros. So one way you can factor this. You could take a 4 out because we always GCF first. Look for factors of negative 4. That are x squared that add to be a positive 3x. That's going to work. Okay, we can use negative 1, or we can use positive 4 and negative 1. It's going to work. You can factor that way. Finish out your box method. You can just go ahead and hop right into the quadratic formula. A is 4, B is 12, C is negative 16. You can do it that way. You'll find the zeros or the x-intercepts. That's going to work. You'll see a problem later that I have to do it that way. So if you want quadratic formula help, just wait on, go a little bit further into the review. There's one I'm going to do that way. The easiest way, if you're ever just asked to find the x-intercepts, if you're ever asked to find the x-intercepts, and you see that the answers are largely just whole numbers, you can pretty much assume it's going to work out, and you can just do it on the calculator. 4x squared, doesn't really matter that I'm typing this into the second one, that'll be fine, because I deleted the first graph. Plus 12x minus 16, zoom 6. I can see, because all my answers are whole numbers, I kind of just eyeball this one. 1, 2, 3, negative 4 comma 0. That actually eliminates all the other options, but just to be careful, let's check the other one. Goes through 1 comma 0. Because all the answers were whole numbers, I can kind of eyeball that one. If you get crazier answers than that, you're going to have to be a bit more careful. 29 is a good question, and it's an easy question, but it's tricky. It's asking which is a coefficient. Coefficients are just the numbers out front of variables. So -3,